Now we've been looking at the middle voice and the passive voice. Now we're going to zero in on both of those with respect to the future tense form. Now we've already looked at the middle of the future tense form, and you recall, as we see these forms, it simply involves the insertion of a sigma before the personal endings if you begin with the present middle passive form. So lusomai or lisome instead of luomai or liome, and so it is throughout the table. But what we need to look at now is the future passive forms, which we have not yet seen. And these are a little more complicated. First, we do see the sigma, as in the middle form, but we also see the addition of two other letters, theta and eta, or theta and ita. Probably it's best just to think of the addition of three letters to form the future passive form. Theta, eta, and sigma, or theta, ita, sigma. And otherwise, you've got, again, the present middle passive forms, just with these three letters inserted. So instead of luomai, or liome, we get luthesomai, or lithisome. For the second person singular, it becomes luthese, or lithisi. For the third singular, luthesetai, or lithisite. For the first person plural, luthesometha, or lithisometha. For the second person plural, luthesesthe, or lithisesthe. For the third person plural, luthesontai, or lithisonte. So these are the forms, the new forms that need to be learned for the future passive indicative. And these will simply be translated as I will be loosed, you will be loosed, he will be loosed, etc. Now, while we're looking at the future tense form, it's worth drawing attention to a special set of forms for the verb eimi. You may remember the verb eimi. I hope you do. It's a very important verb in Greek, meaning I am. But so far we've only looked at the present active indicative forms. Now we're going to look at the future active indicative form of eimi. And here it is. The first person singular form is esomai, or esome. The second singular is esse, or essi. The third singular, estai, or este. The first person plural form is esometha. Second plural, esesthe. The third plural, esontai, or esonte. Now, you'll notice that these forms do have fairly predictable endings once you know your middle and passive forms. But these are not middle passive forms. That's the thing. These are future active forms. These are active forms for the future tense form. And that's what we need to pay attention to. So the endings will be familiar from some prior learning for the present, middle, and passive forms. But with eimi, with the verb eimi, to be or I am, these forms are actually used for the future active forms. So we need to learn those and be able to recognize those in the text. Now there's one more thing to draw attention to, and this refers to a set of rules known as the rules for mutes. Mutes are certain letters that when you combine another certain letter, in this case theta is the letter we're concerned with, they undergo change. Now this is of particular importance since we have just been looking at the future passive indicative forms, and you remember that in the future passive we had theta, eta, sigma added to the forms in the middle of those forms. So what happens when a theta joins a stem whose last letter is some kind of mute? Well, we get these patterns. First, if the mute is k, g, or chi, that is kappa, gamma, or chi, chi, when theta is added to any of those letters, they change to a chi or chi plus theta. So we get a k sound. If you have a p, b, or f letter, that is pi or pi, beta or vita, or phi or phi, when any of these three letters are combined with theta, we get phi or phi, theta, fither. Little hard to say. If we get t, d, or th, that is tau or tav, delta, or theta, with the addition of theta, these will all change to sigma theta, th. So an example in Greek would be anoigo or anigo, which means I open. If we turn that present active indicative first person singular form into a future passive indicative first person singular form, we get anoik thysomai or anich thysome. So if we write anoigo here, that's the present active indicative first person singular form, but we want to change this into the future passive indicative first person singular form, then we do this. Now the gamma needs to change when the theta is added, so it becomes a chi. It's a long form, isn't it? And we've run out of space for that final iota. Anyway, the point is here. The gamma becomes a chi or a chi when the theta is added. So these are the rules for mutes. It's important that these are memorized so that you can recognize when one of these letters has undergone some kind of change because of the addition of the theta into the word when you're forming a future passive indicative form.